Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to AskTop.net, sponsored by MentorMilitary.com. I am your host, Command Sergeant Major Retired Mark Garrett. Today we're going to talk about corrective training, how to do it correctly. A lot of times I've found that soldiers do it incorrectly simply because they don't know the rules, the reasons, the regulations, the doctrine, and that's how it was done to them. In other words, that's how their leaders conducted corrective training with them. Doesn't make it right. It means that we need to educate our young leaders. So here are the references. Notice that FM 722 is among the references. We'll talk about that later in another corrective training class. So there are two types of two types of authority: command military authority and general military authority. So command authority comes from the president, laws, regulations, and it's by virtue of position or rank. As a squad leader, platoon sergeant, company commander, it's exercised when we assume a position of leadership. So general military authority happens when we take our oath of office, oath of enlistment, our structures, traditions, and regulations. It allows us to correct members of the military service when they breach the good order and discipline of the service. AR 600-20 provides us the authority to use corrective training for commissioned, warrant, and non-commissioned officers. The basic kind of corrective action is on-the-spot correction. A soldier usually requires on-the-spot correction because they didn't know the standard or they willingly disobeyed the standard. If they did it with willful disobedience, then it needs to be addressed immediately and potentially a phone call made to their chain of command. On-the-spot corrections are used not only from leader to subordinate, but tactfully from subordinate to leader and from peer to peer. It's our responsibility to adhere to the standard and enforce the standard. So, names for corrective training: on-the-spot correction, extra training, extra military instruction. Notice I did not say extra duty. Extra duty is imposed under UCMJ as punishment. And you have to make sure that corrective training is not punishment, is not seen as punishment, and is not a smoke session. So you have all three of these different words for corrective training. Who can conduct corrective training? Any military leader in the chain of command. When and why is it imposed? When a soldier fails to perform the standard, as we mentioned earlier, and we want to improve performance. Let's talk about how we implement it. Now, doctrine tells us it must not be used or appear to be punishment. Must be directly related to the observed deficiency. Must specifically address the observed deficiency. Must be discontinued once the deficiency is corrected. That's important. Once the deficiency is corrected, corrective training is to be terminated. Must not be used in place of UCMJ. Smoke sessions are illegal. You are responsible for the health, welfare, and safety of your soldiers while you're conducting corrective training. Do not be abusive. There's a side note here too, that in accordance with 2710 and 600-20, when we use corrective training, it's not supposed to be noted in official records. Experience shows us when conducting corrective training, we must provide proper resources to complete the training. It must be conducted in a safe environment. It cannot be ridiculous in nature. We're going to get to some of those examples. Now, what are some proper examples? Poor physical shape. We can do additional physical training. Unclean personal or work equipment. Devote more time to cleaning these. The soldier may need special instruction on how to maintain their equipment. Poor execution of drill. More drill practice. Failure to maintain housing, work, or property abuse. May need to do more maintenance to correct the shortcomings. Fail to perform assigned duties properly. Given special formal instructions or more on-the-job training in those duties. Does not respond well to orders. May need to participate in additional drill and exercises to improve. All of these things are related to a specific offense and are gauged to correct that offense or deficiency. Let's look at some inappropriate examples of corrective training. These are all ones that I saw and in some cases were implemented with me when I was a young private. Cutting grass with scissors and a ruler, believe it or not. Cutting grass at night with flashlights and a road guard vest. Don't forget the road guard vest. Cleaning an area with a toothbrush, like the latrine floors. Wearing a sign that states the offense, like I was late for work or I was not wearing my seatbelt. So use common sense, treat soldiers like you want to be treated, don't be abusive. Now, let's talk about something a little bit different that goes beyond corrective training. When corrective training fails, there's two choices that you have. One is a step up from corrective training to get the soldier's attention, and the other is the dreadful UCMJ. But before we get to UCMJ, because those can have second and third order consequences on a soldier's career, let's talk about that for a minute. When we recommend an Article 15, and let's just say that soldier was frequently late for work, but otherwise that soldier is a good soldier, and you just want to correct that performance. Later, let's say 8 months later, it comes time for that soldier to re-enlist. And now that soldier needs a waiver to re-enlist because they had UCMJ, and they are not granted the waiver. Was that your intent? For that soldier's career to be ended or that soldier to be separated? Think through what you want done and what your true intent is before you recommend UCMJ. Use that as your last recourse. So, revocation of privileges is a powerful tool. NCOs and leaders can recommend it, but only commanders can implement it. Almost everything in the military can be related to a privilege. It's a powerful tool. So, what are privileges? Past privileges, civilian clothing, personal property, driving privileges, PX privileges, commissary privileges, alcohol, MWR, off-post living, visitation, tobacco, weapons, off-duty employment, unit sports, you name it. Pretty much, it can be a privilege. So let's say that a soldier is abusing their gym privileges. Maybe they're abusing equipment in the gym. The commander can remove MWR privileges. Soldier is misbehaving, not performing to standard. Commander can revoke past privileges. Even visitation privileges, that visitors do not come and see them while their past privileges are revoked. So you can see how powerful these tools are. Now, generally, you need to make sure that they're in line with whatever the offense was. For example, you're most likely not going to revoke alcohol and tobacco privileges when there was nothing involved that related to those. Let's say that you go into the room and there's a lot of alcohol cans in the room, and maybe the alcohol limit in a room is exceeded. Then alcohol privileges could be revoked. So keep it to where it makes sense, where it's designed to get their attention, and it's a little bit more intense than corrective training. Now, did you know that smoke sessions are illegal? They are. They're abusive in nature, and you can be held legally responsible for abusing and injuring your subordinates. So, in summary, we talked about references, authority, terms, who can implement corrective training, the when and why, the rules, proper and improper examples, what to do when corrective training fails, and the revocation of privileges. Please think about educating your subordinates on the value of corrective training and revocation of past privileges. These two items can help save a career, but more importantly, they can educate young soldiers develop them into good leaders that can properly implement corrective training and build and grow standards within a unit. Again, this is Mark Garrett with AskTop.net, sponsored by MentorMilitary.com. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to sharing part 2 of corrective training with you in the future.